All right, my name is Sean Swartz. I'm the forest manager here and adjunct faculty. Just want to welcome you to Warren Wilson College. You're technically guests of the church right now, but you're on campus at Warren Wilson, and so I wanted to welcome you and tell you just a little bit about the context of where you are in relationship to the topic of ginseng. I think they are going to have me in a growers session later, so we can go into more details with anything that you're interested in hearing about. But in really brief as I can make it, the campus is about 1,200 acres, 620 of which is in forest, and it's all contiguous with campus. We are an applied learning school, so in addition to academics, we also have a work program and a community engagement program. So students, in addition to fulfilling academic requirements, also have a work requirement that they have to be part of a crew and work on campus. So I supervise the forestry crew. One of our students is here now, Jonatas, and we have a couple others who will be here later. And they do active management of the forest, acting as forest technicians. So they're trained to be forest technicians. Some of them are ecological forestry majors. Others of them have other liberal arts majors. We have arts majors on our crew, and psychology and ODL and all kinds of things that are learning to be forest technicians. Some of them go on to end up working in forestry, some don't. Some of them end up working in very different fields. But they still get the experience of learning how to acquire a vocation and a skill set, and then they can apply that to a number of different contexts in the rest of their life. We also do a lot of the community engagements with outside groups, doing volunteer and service work for various forestry projects, mostly in ecological restoration. So our forest is managed according to 4 objectives. The first is protection of the forest resource. Second is education. We are a college. Third is recreation and aesthetics. And 4 is utilization of products, both timber and non-timber forest products. So, and they're prioritized in that order so that generating a product or even recreation or education would never supersede ecological health objectives for the forest. So where non-timber forest products come in for us is in that product utilization, and we think they fit really well with our forest protection and education objectives. We are growing about 3 acres of ginseng right now in wild simulated production. We have been planting actively for the last 3 or 4 years now, and we have some older plantings that have been going back to the early 2000s. On the forest. We also work with black cohosh and golden seal and twin leaf and bloodroot and stone root and some other understory medicinals. Beyond that, we also grow a number of species of mushrooms and black Perigord truffle and hazelnuts, doing research on hazelnuts, as well as some traditional forestry stuff. Research on ginseng, Dr. Elisa Hove has been partnering with UNCA and doing some research on looking at the genetics behind ginseng, polyploidism versus monoploidism. I'm not a geneticist, so some of how they pollinate and how populations can become endemic, what the source of some of our populations are, what is wild ginseng when people have been planting here since 1890s with seed from outside the region, things like that. So last thing I'll say is that we're going to be partnering with North Carolina Ag Extension to work on, be one of the growers for a cooperative grant that Dr. Jim Hamilton got to establish a local North Carolina source of seed that is North Carolina genetics. Again, we're looking at what North Carolina genetics means in a crop that has been moved around for hundreds of years. So that's basically in a nutshell what we're doing with ginseng and other things. And when I come up on the growers panel later, I can go into some more of the specifics if you're interested.
Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the legislation that we need here in North Carolina. Let me read something I put together. The mountains is going to have a caucus, a mountain caucus that John Ager is trying to get together of both Democrats and Republicans to zero in on this issue. So HB 733 requires American ginseng harvesters to have a small license fee to harvest legally in North Carolina mountains. Ideally, the law would be budget neutral, with the fee covering the NCDA personnel administering the program, plus some type of reseeding or replanting component. This is not a new idea. The fee-based program was presented to the North Carolina Plant Conservation Board in 2008, with encouragement from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the plant conservation staff. However, political pressure seems to have come from harvesters and one dealer that stopped this from passing at the last minute. The topic, licensing of ginseng harvesters, was voted on at the 2012 Ginseng Expo in Fletcher, North Carolina. And North Carolina the expo was sponsored by the North Carolina Natural Products Association. Handheld voting machines allowed the audience to vote. The result, I think we had 135 people. The result was over 90% approval from those attending to have a fee for harvesting in North Carolina. Now, this was brought up as a topic again at the ginseng marketplace that Jessica talked about, and we'll be sending you a link on it. And that was sponsored by the North Carolina Ginseng Association. And this panel was made up of a North Carolina legislator, John Ager, a sheriff's representative from Buddy in Madison County, Buddy Hardwick, a North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission district supervisor, and Jim Corbin representing the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. It was a, I think, 27-minute discussion. And when Jim Corbin with NCDA polled the people he knew on the federal, state, and local agents after the conference, and wrote an email to me and John that all the people that he talked to agreed that it would make their jobs easier if licensing were to happen, especially on the local and state levels, which was where he was targeting most of the response. So why is HB 733, or whatever is going to be the number this year coming up, it provides the ability of the state government to educate the harvester, especially the new harvester, and not rely on the North Carolina ginseng dealers who are too late to educate for that season and rely on knowledge being carried over the next year. So that's a real bad way to educate the harvesters. You need to have the harvesters be able to have information come from the Department of Agriculture telling them what to do. The amount of illegal roots that are dug by people who don't understand what's happening is just horrible. The one example that I've given for a number of years is getting a call in August, mid-August. Now, the ginseng season hasn't started in North Carolina till September 1. So mid-August, this guy is, out of season to start off. And he explained to me very proudly how his son, who got out of school in May, had harvested, I believe it was 12 pounds or 27,000 plants illegally, out of season. And the whole purpose of it is to let the plants at least produce berries so that they could drop, so we can have some kind of production down the line. Obviously, taking the plants before the season starts is a non-starter, and here this individual had no knowledge of what the rules and regulations were. Now, the second part of HB 733 is that without some form of reseeding or planting seedlings, we are going to lose this plant, especially from our state and North Carolina natural forests, since billions of U.S. ginseng plants have been sold to China since the 1700s. With no program of replanting and more plants being taken than can be replaced, this will be a dying industry that in the late 1800s, ginseng was the 5th most exported product in North Carolina. It's a shame that we have let this plant, which for thousands of years helped human beings, it would be sad to lose this wonderful plant, which we have not been conserving. The numbers are not good. And so the North Carolina Ginseng Association's, one of its goals is to allow farmers to grow wild simulated ginseng to be used in the American market and not be as concerned about exporting this product, which for so many years has been exported. And actually the last couple of years, the word from Hong Kong is that they have too much product. They have too much ginseng in storage, and they are not willing to pay any kind of a premium price for it. So I think that what was a topic years ago that was never, ever really mentioned in public was the ability for us to actually stop exporting the root, to let the root reestablish itself back here in the United States and turn the kind of small market, there's 4 or 5% of the ginseng market every year stays in America. And so that is what we could build that up to a larger number and not export. Now, people have criticized me for saying that in West Virginia, but the reality is that we have the outer reaches of this plant, Maine and Michigan. You can't export any of that. It all has to be cultivated ginseng in those 2 states. And there's no harvesting in Arkansas, the national forest down there. Anybody want to help me with the name of that forest in? Ozarks, exactly. The Ozarks have had a ban on ginseng since I came in '94 to the field. So there is no way that people can say, well, if we ban this, the market's going to tank and everybody's going to lose a lot of money. That's not true. what's going to happen is that it's going to get redirected to a new American market, which is what I believe we should be doing in the first place. Okay, so what happened at that meeting in 17 was it was determined by having the North Carolina Wildlife Commission there, who have firearms, sidearms they call it. They were, by their legal department, told that they could not answer a call on private land for ginseng harvesting illegally. And that seems to be corrected. And I have here that an email from Brad Standback, if anybody would know that name. He's a pretty famous guy. Because of technical difficulties, we're shooting this outside the conference. This is about Brad Standback's email. He wrote an email stating that the wildlife enforcement officers, that issue of them not having a clear legal mandate to enforce ginseng poaching on private land, is going to be cleared up by new legislation. There were some minor technical and grammatical changes that nevertheless made a big difference to the lawyers. Assuming this passes the legislature, we should be able to work out an agreement of understanding between the Wildlife Resource Commission and the North Carolina Department of Agriculture to empower the enforcement officers to work on ginseng poaching anywhere in North Carolina. We would encourage you, if you have a poaching issue, to call your county enforcement officer. And if you have any questions about this, a Lieutenant Andrew Helton with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission is very knowledgeable on this area. Yes.
It seems like people who are digging would learn from the dealers pretty quickly that if they're digging it too soon, that they're not going to get any money.
Well, here's the thing. The question was, you would think that the diggers would learn and catch onto the system pretty well. The fact is that a lot of diggers are only out there 1 year. You know, it tend to be a time when they're not working, they've gotten laid off. 2008 was a huge time when a lot of people went into the forest. Then they find out the Hong Kong Chinese people are only going to give them $2 a root, and they've spent all that time going out, finding it, not getting bitten by the bees or the rattlesnakes, and come back, wash it properly, dry it properly, and bring it to the dealer, and they get $2 for that root. That's a lot, and it's a great business model for the Hong Kong Chinese. Great model. You know, it's piecework. You're accepting that end product and paying them. No medical insurance, no compensation, nothing along those lines. Worker compensation. It's the ideal situation for a business model. It's not the ideal situation for either ginseng or the harvesters or the farmers, in my estimation. Okay, I think we're going to now segue into our session on green, fresh
Robert, why don't we take
ginseng.
like a 10, 15-minute break, let people use the bathroom, get some food, look at
Okay,
the
can you
Robert,
cut the...
I'm
sorry to interrupt. Actually, next on our agenda, we have Betty, the curator
Oh,
from the
right,
Smithsonian.
right. Yeah, let her come up here and do that, and then we'll take a break.
Is
Yeah,
that-
fine.
Oh, no, everyone, I'd like to introduce, Betty, I don't want to mispronounce your last name. Is it Balanis?
Balanis.
Balanis. Everyone, this is Betty Balanis. She's the curator. She works for the Smithsonian, and she's down here. Oh, I'm sorry. She came down here today. She's working on an exhibit. Her goal is for 2020 on American ginseng, and she'd like to talk to us about that. So
Okay.
we're very excited to have her here.
Thank you very much. And some colleagues of mine from Tennessee just came
Oh,
in, so,
welcome.
wanted to welcome them. I'm sure they'll be interested in talking to folks from North Carolina. So I'm from the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. We do something called the Smithsonian Folklife Festival every year. Anybody ever heard of the Smithsonian Folklife Festival? No? Yes? Good. And next year, our overall theme, next year as in 2020, our overall theme for the festival is traditional knowledge and the environment. So I have an interest in medicinal plants. I'm not an expert, I'm just somebody with an interest, and you guys have a lot more information about all of this than I do, so I'm learning from you. And I thought something around American ginseng would be particularly interesting because it is not only, a medicinal herb, but it has this whole incredible history around it of trading with China for over 300 years. And also there's a lot of scientific research that's being done in conservation biology, in medical fields, and there are just so many people involved that have knowledge. There are the harvesters or the diggers. There are now, more and more growers, the traders, even the law enforcement have their own knowledge, their own stories, and we want to bring people together that don't often get to come together and talk about how everybody is trying to help make this plant available to future generations. Because everybody's got a stake in it, whether you're a farmer, whether you're somebody whose family has been digging ginseng for generations, whether you're Native American, whether you're a forager that is using it yourself. So we're kind of casting a wide net and hoping to get people from different states. So we wouldn't just be drawing people from North Carolina, but from West Virginia, from Tennessee, from Ohio, from Southern Ohio, from even New York State. There's a big ginseng farm in New York State, and there are still some wild harvesters there. Pennsylvania. So bringing people together in Washington, D.C. for this program to meet the public, who, that's the whole point of our festival, is to meet a wide public, and help everyone learn about this incredible plant, why it's endangered, what they can do to help ensure it for the future, and to have some of these debates that I see are already happening in this room, between different people that have different opinions or different means of conserving the plant for the future. So this is just a little one-page summary. It just tells a little bit about what our festival is and what we're hoping to do with this program. I'm going to hand that out, and my contact information is at the bottom. We currently have a number of interns. In fact, we have an intern that is based here. She's actually on an artist fellowship here at the college. Her name is Danielle Burke. You probably didn't meet her because since she's on an artist fellowship, but she'll come find you, doing some research in their own areas, and so we're hoping to get some really great information. So just
just going to help you.
oh, you're gonna pass those out. I have cards in case anybody wants that, but my same information is on the sheet. So I thank you all. I'm learning a lot, and I hope you get a chance to meet our colleagues from Tennessee as well. Thank you.